Hi, I'm Liam Dann, New Zealand Herald Business Editor-at-Large, and this is a podcast about our relationship with money. We're not going to tell you how to get rich. We're not going to try and pick the next interest rate move. In this series, I talk to some interesting New Zealanders about money, how it has shaped their lives, and what they've learned about it through the years. With me today, I have journalist and host of new TV3 current affairs show, Paddy Gower Has Issues, Patrick Gower. Kia ora, welcome to Money Talks.
Yeah, hi Liam, good to be here.
Thanks, man. Well, it's great to catch up in this format. I sort of wanted to do a little bit of a disclosure that I've known you for about 20 years, or we've known each other about 20 years, right? We've worked together. We've been to a few parties back in the day.
Yep.
I think back on that crew, we always thought you kind of deserved your own TV show. How does it feel? Is it a sense of destiny to it all?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a sense of destiny or what. I guess, yeah, you know, back in the day, I'd entertain you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, now the audience is slightly bigger, but, it's a hard question to answer first because, the easy way to answer it is I sort of don't feel there's a sense of destiny and it sort of has just arisen and that's really good. But, the truth, remembering back to partying with you and hanging out with you and we were so young. And
this was the Hamilton days. There was a really good crew of journalists in Hamilton, going back around the turn of the millennium.
Yeah, yep, and you'd come down and visit with your BFM sticker on the back of your brown hatchback. Yeah. And sometimes you do think there is a sense of destiny to these kinds of things. And, just because I'm speaking to you, I guess that, I know that I'm sort of stammering a bit, but there does feel like a little bit of a sense of destiny here. And that's really exciting, but also quite fearful because in life you don't really want to necessarily come to your day of destiny because it sort of seems
what's after that?
Yeah, it's like, whoa, is this it?
Yeah, and look, it's TV and TV,
there'll be another destiny. We'll just create another one. So that's good. So that's good to think of it that way.
But it's exciting, and look, really thrilled for you. Let's jump back. Let's jump right back, actually. To get into some of this money talk. I always like to start with earliest memories. What's the sort of earliest memory you have of money in your hand or having money to spend?
Yeah, I can't really. I thought about this a lot before I came on. I can't really remember that much myself. I had a pretty ordinary Kiwi upbringing. I definitely had a paper round, and that was my kind of first job. And I couldn't even really remember how they paid me or anything like that. But my first memory of money is when my dad got made redundant and he brought home the cheque.
Wow.
And we had the cheque in the lounge, and I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was quite a lot of money, I suppose, at that time, tens of thousands of dollars. My dad worked at the power station and in New Plymouth, and people, it was the 1980s when I was growing up, and obviously there was all sorts of changes to state-owned enterprises and different things. And I'd remember Dad would go to work one day in the white New Zealand Power Board overalls, and he'd ride his 10-speed down to the power station to go onto the night shift. And then he came back another day with the Flasher Electricorp maroon overalls, as it had changed across to a state-owned enterprise, I guess.
Yep.
And eventually he took redundancy there, and I remember he came home with a cheque, and it was a lot of money. And my sister and I, we all sort of looked at it, and it was a lot of money. But also, I guess my dad was out of work and looking to do something new. So, if there's one kind of defining thing, it was that day, really.
Yeah. I mean, when you think back with all that, political context you've got now, that's kind of the lived experience of what New Zealand, that transformation New Zealand went through in the 80s, I guess.
Yeah, my dad was involved with trade unions as well, so there was always a lot of that sort of stuff going on. Yep. But it wasn't until I got to university and started looking back, because, by the time I got to university, it was, well and truly being studied what had happened through Muldoon and then into Rogernomics.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
for me, it was my dad's overalls changing and a redundancy at the end of it, and from there, him and Mum went off and started small businesses and different things like that. But that's my main memory of money, and through my parents, and they always looked out for us with money and everything. There wasn't a lot or anything like that, but Mum and Dad always had enough for us to do whatever we sort of wanted to do around downtown New Plymouth.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is famously growing up in Taranaki, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people talking on this podcast will say that, in those times, New Zealand families didn't have a lot of money, but there also didn't seem to be so much poverty. There was a sort of a flatter sort of social structure or something.
Yeah, and that's my memory of it. We didn't dream of going on an overseas trip, or we never went skiing or anything like that, but Mum and Dad would take us on holidays, camping. We'd be able to do it wasn't ever like they really said we can't do anything we wanted to do, but there was never any largesse or anything super happening like it was, and everyone just sort of seemed the same around New Plymouth as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, the main thing I sort of remember was, for me and my group of friends, lots of not pressure, but lots of expectation that we'd go to university. Most of our parents, all of our parents, none of them had been to university. They weren't in jobs like that, and they were all keen for all of me and my peers to get off to uni, and I know mine definitely were. My dad was a fitter and turner by trade, working at the power station, and my mum, she'd been a receptionist in a doctor's surgery, and no one in my family had been to university, even though my mum in particular was a really intelligent lady, and I know that my grandmother, her mother, was as well. She worked as what was called a seamstress or a sewer up here in South Auckland in Manurewa. And there was this big expectation to get off to uni no matter what, and that's that's the only pressure I remember coming from my parents. They just wanted to get me and my sister off to uni. Yeah.
Did you feel, you say it's pressure, did you feel like there was some, like career and all that sort of stuff was influencing your choices at school and that sort of stuff?
No, I think because my parents knew so little about the professional world. Like, they didn't say, go and do this or go and do that. Like, their sort of involvement was really just like, go to university so that you don't end up like us. So you've got more choices, I guess. And they wouldn't sort of, and, despite all of their efforts and everything, I didn't, I only just sort of scraped through to uni, despite all, how much it meant to them. It didn't really motivate me much more. Sorry, Mum and Dad.
Well, I was a bit like that, to be honest. What did you study at university?
And then I went to uni and I did a Bachelor of Arts, and that was actually in politics. And, I passed that pretty quick, and it wasn't super hard or anything. And of course, that doesn't really land you a job, as everybody knows. And I think that's what confused my parents, was like, we've gone to all this effort, and they'd put up a lot of money so that I didn't have much of a student loan, because it's in the days of student loans where interest was accruing. As soon as you took it off the government, the interest started building, and my mum and dad were pretty conscious of that, whereas I wasn't, and I got a BA, and then I eventually got a BA honours, then I eventually did my journalism, and then finally they could see that I had a career path, but I'd sort of just cruise to get to there. And
it was still tough in the 90s. I don't want to pull out the tiniest violin, but in the 90s there weren't jobs. The unemployment was high. A BA wasn't a path to just some great corporate job. There was no one sort of waiting at the end of a BA to sort of tell you what to do particularly.
No, and I just look back, and despite there not being much money around, and my mum in particular was really good with money. Like, when her and my dad started a business, she would do all the accounts and everything, and she was really, really good with money. And despite all of that around me and the economic situation and everything, like, I've just always been totally crap with money. Like, that's why I was kind of thinking, how can I even talk on this podcast with you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so student loan, you blew the student loan.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of contained it just thanks to mum and dad's help, but like, I've always struggled to actually understand the value of money. Like, when I spend it, I'm not very good at noticing how much change I get back. I've never been very good at saving. It's not that I am a spendthrift. It's not like I've got heaps or anything, but even I can remember back to when I was young, my sister, like, I remember one time I was downtown at the mill in New Plymouth, like, partying, and I ran out of money, and my house was quite close, and like, I came back and had to sneak in, wake my sister up and borrow some money off her so that I could go back and buy some beers. And my sister would sort of like dole out money to me. I'll pay her back one day. But I just have always struggled with money. And when I was at university, I really struggled to kind of keep things balanced. And even when I was older and I was living in London on my OE in my 20s and I wasn't earning that much, I really struggled to stick to a budget and that kind of thing. And that's just translated to just generally being crap with money. I'm probably the worst with money that has ever been on this podcast.
Well, who knows? But one of the questions I do ask is what's the poorest you've ever been? I mean, I guess it sounds like there's been a few opportunities along the way to be scraping along. London must have been tough.
Yeah, and it was tough. And I mean, it was never like poor. In university, I was never like poor, because you could always ring up your family and they'd give you, a small amount of money. But I think probably when I was living in London on my OE, because I was so disorganised and stuff like that, even though I had a reasonable job, but it was sort of getting to that stage where I couldn't really ring up mum and dad and ask them for money because I was actually just too old, so, and that it was there that I would run out of money because I just did not have any planning, and actually I'd have to borrow off my mates and stuff like that to get kind of through. So that's sort of where, so like basically I have to be working and earning to keep myself out of the shtuck with money.
It's good motivation.
It is good motivation. That's maybe why the career keeps going, because I have to kind of have to keep working.
If you did, if you dream about winning lotto and how much money and being independently wealthy, how much was your dream amount of lotto money to win?
So I would probably say 1 million, just enough to kind of, clear a bit of everything and because I'd probably want to keep working. But then I sort of think about it and I'm thinking probably 10 million. So so
you can give a bit away then.
Yeah. I
Be generous.
But I'd take 1 million. I mean, I would just want enough to kind of clear everything, and I'd still want to keep doing my job and all that sort of stuff. So 1 million, but maybe if I sat down and investigated a bit more, 10. Because I mean, I don't care about I don't care about cars. I don't really have any interests that cost that much money, I drive a 2001 Toyota Corolla, and people, they see me and they think you work on TV and you just earn megabucks and you're meant to be driving a Porsche or something, but just I'm not into that kind of thing. And now that I don't drink, like, that was basically my main thing that I spent money on. And so, I don't do that anymore.
Geez, you need to start doing electric train sets or something like Rod Stewart.
Yeah. Well, I started riding bikes, so they're relatively expensive.
Well, I was going to say, what is, assuming you've got at least income under control, a bit mortgage under control, what would you describe as a bit of an indulgence now?
Yeah. I know it's going to sound super boring, super middle-aged and kind of pre-boomer, but I really just like spending money on my bikes. I've tried to get interested in getting some art and stuff like that. Is something to get into,
get passionate about.
Get passionate about, and so I've bought a couple of artworks and that's about it. I mean, like, it's probably not going to make the greatest interview, but I actually really don't care that much about money.
Yeah.
And I care enough to live and do things, but I genuinely don't really understand the value of a dollar other than keeping everything afloat. And I don't have material needs.
Yeah.
And does that sound weird?
No. I mean, I'm probably a bit like that myself, which is even weirder because I've made my whole career about talking about money. But, I mean, when you look at, that's one of the questions I've got down here, which is now completely redundant, is making money important to you? But, and how much it influenced you. And, when you think about journalism, certainly, it's a bit better now, we're senior and things, but when you start out, journalism's terribly paid. I assume money wasn't a factor in deciding to do journalism?
No, I always looked at it. It's like, even now, I look at it, well, it's like being a professional surfer or something like that. Like, I get to do what I love doing, and, I get rewarded really well for it now. Like, better than I ever dreamed that I could do. So I'm really lucky and thankful. And every time I get grumpy about my work and stuff like that, which is relatively often at my age, I almost need to take myself and give myself a sort of slap and say, hey, you love this. You get paid to do what you love. Yeah. Like, why are you so grouchy? Yeah. And so it wasn't that. It's not like I'm some dyed-in-the-wool lefty or anything like that. Like, I'm actually not. But just through a bit of good management and good luck, I've been able to get in a position where I'm paid pretty well for what I do, and I love doing what I do. So and it manages to bring in enough money that I don't bankrupt myself, which from previous sort of iterations of my life is quite possible.
Yeah. See, it's those things. I actually had my 20th anniversary here Friday ago. Oh, wow. And I talked to the newsroom and I said, when you get grumpy, you just have to look around the newsroom and remember where you wanted to be as a kid, and that newsroom environment, right? It's awesome. Pretty compelling.
It's awesome.
So the new show is quite a big deal in the sense that it's a big investment by the company. We just haven't seen something on the scale for quite a while in New Zealand. I mean, in terms of dealing with the budget and all that sort of stuff, how are you handling that? Yeah,
well, the way that I handle dealing with the budget is, thank goodness, I don't have anything to do with it, and there's people that do. Yeah. But it's a massive thing for the company to do, to actually, because there's no New Zealand on air funding. People often use New Zealand on air funding, from the government department, New Zealand on air to get shows or programs up and running. But this is purely a Warner Brothers Discovery operation, Liam, and
so no room for rabbit holers to say the government's bought you.
No, that's right. That wasn't where I was going. But while we're saying it, I should say, there's absolutely no room for rabbit holers to think that we've been bought off or anything like that, because it's a completely advertising funded operation, which is awesome, and that puts us in the same kind of category as any other commercial show, like the big show Tracked that's on, and any other program that we put on. We've got all these other things, Traitors, and sounds bad, doesn't it? Traitors and Paddy Gower, but
these kind of shows we haven't had. This kind of broader, longer current affairs show. It's been a while.
Yeah, and it's going to be really relying on one thing if we want to sort of talk money and capitalism. It's going to be relying on people watching it. Yeah. Like, that's, if it's going to come back next year, people have to, we have to get people to watch.
So it's hitting that balance, isn't it, between the serious stuff and make it fun.
We've got to get people in the door, and so in that sense, it's like any other business, really. We need customers to come to us, or else, the bosses will close the door on us. So that now that you've sort of put it like that, this is the biggest business
Yeah, no
operation that I've ever been involved in.
Yeah. A bit different to being the Hamilton reporter for the New Zealand Herald back in the day.
That's right.
I mean, when people see, I mean, how do you cope with the celebrity side of it? I know you get asked this a bit, but my daughter as a teenager, I've got a kid brother who's in the media, and lots of people in the media, but you're the only guy that she sort of was aware of as a journalist, sort of that celebrity side. Do people treat you differently because you're quite well known on the telly and the social media now?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So there's a sort of couple of things. People do think that because you're on TV that you're rich.
Yeah.
And I drive a Toyota Corolla 2001 automatic with a dinged wing mirror, and quite a lot of mud and different stuff in it from my dog, and disused up and goes or finished up and goes on the ground or whatever. And people, this kid came up to me the other day and said, I expected you to be driving a Porsche. Right? And, the kids in particular will say, do you live in a mansion?
Yeah.
And, I don't drive a Porsche. I don't live in a mansion. But people do expect you to, because you're on TV, to be really, really wealthy. I don't know whether it's because they link it to like movie stars or something like that, but it is just not. It's just not like that. I mean,
I guess you could drive if you wanted the Porsche to be your thing. You could probably scrimp and save.
Yeah,
like a lot of New Zealanders.
Yeah, if I was massively focused on driving a Porsche, I could. Yeah. But
seems like you're not.
Well, are Porsches manuals? Because I can't drive a manual.
I think they have really difficult gearboxes. I've only driven one once many years ago.
So that would probably be the main reason. But for me, there's never been any sort of movie star style pay packets or whatever. Don't get me wrong. Compared to the average New Zealander, I am really, really well paid. And compared to the average journalist, I'm really, really well paid. And I'm thankful for that. But at the same time, and I'd never say this to anyone else, I got there myself.
Yeah.
I did the mahi to get there, and I'm still doing it. Like, I've worked bloody hard, and actually, it's funny that you ask these questions because just being with you makes me want to be really honest, because and I've done it. Like, I'm proud of what I've done.
You should be.
And I'm not proud of the money or anything like that, but I'm proud that I've worked so hard and I've got into this position, because if it had been a business or whatever and it had done well like this, it would be something to be really proud of too. But it's my career, and that's like my business, and I'm a self-made person, and that's the dream of lots of Kiwis to get to this point. And I've done it through my own hard work and sacrifice, and that's something to be proud of. And I think anybody who's listening to this podcast, whether they're a director of, because you'll have lots of people who are directors of companies, and you have CEOs in here, and all of those people, we're all kind of striving for the same. The numbers might be different and the things might be different, but it's that ability to go, hey, I'm financially comfortable because of the stuff that I've done in my life. Yeah. And mine might be a sort of slightly different version. I wish I'd had heaps of investments and different things like that, and I don't really. But my career's been an investment, and I'm bloody proud of it. Yeah. So that's a very long way of answering, do I want a Porsche?
Yeah. The career's a payoff. A successful career in journalism, maybe not a get-rich scheme.
Yeah.
So you were never tempted, times when the mortgage is looking pretty big and things, by the dark side, what we call the dark side, the PR world?
Yeah, public relations, no. And it's a great question, because I can tell you right now the number of public relations offers that I've had, because, when you're in Parliament, obviously people jump from
all that lobbying
one side over to working for the politicians and seeing all of that, or they can go into lobbying, which is this huge industry.
Yep.
And the number of offers that I've had in my career to go into PR is approximately a big fat zero.
Wow.
Not one offer. Ever. No one has ever come to me and said, hey, can you come over and work for us on the dark side? So in answer to your question, I don't know if I've ever been tempted to go to the dark side, because I'd have to look in the paper and apply for one of those jobs.
Yeah.
I swear to the God of journalism, no one has ever offered me even blankly. And actually, it got to it's like, well, in Parliament that whole time,
why not?
Why not?
yeah. I mean, it's almost maybe
what's wrong with me?
They looked at you and said, "He'll be too honest. He'll just say the thing that you."
I don't know what the reason was. So that's kept me from the dark side, and the way that I have been lucky, because the way my career's gone, it has gone well, and I haven't perhaps been as confronted over time with some of the harsh realities of journalistic pay, because I've ended up in jobs where it's not going to be a surprise to anyone that I get paid pretty well by the standard of your average journalist. You know. And isn't it funny? You sort of get to those sort of things, you do kind of use all this language, which I'm trying not to do. So, and that's really avoided that for me as well. So it's easy for me to go, I never thought about that or anything.
Take the high ground.
Take the high ground. But I'm pretty lucky that I've kind of moved ahead of things.
In business journalism, you sort of get noticed in that world. I came close a couple of times. Not anymore. I got to say, I got through it, I think. But
they were always circling.
Well, it's hard to give up that freedom that you have as a journalist to sort of say what you think. I mean, we've got boundaries, but certainly in your job, you're given a fair bit of scope to say what you honestly believe. And that's awesome, and that's another great thing, to get kind of a job where you get to say and do what you want. That's a dream, and so I get to live it. All right, I've got one more stupid question before I ask a few more serious ones. What would be your favourite song about money? You got a favourite tune that would be?
I do, and because huge Prince fan. Rest in peace. So Money Don't Matter Tonight.
Oh yeah.
Which if you listen to the lyrics, it's really about money not mattering. The day before, it doesn't. Money doesn't really matter in the end to me. Other stuff does. I want, obviously, everyone to be safe and secure and have a roof over their head. But
sort of a means to an end.
So that's people will listen to this and go, "Who is this guy?" But that's just my vibe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you apply that sort of philosophy, I guess, to economics or political economics? When you look at the world, and you deal a lot in this, you go and talk to people who are really struggling. You know what's going on with poverty in this country. How do you feel about that inequality, and what do you think is causing some of that?
You look at things. So here's an area so I'm actually, despite sort of saying money doesn't really matter that much to me, I am a capitalist. I think it's the best way for society to function that we know, and the economy does need to push the way that it does and drag society along with it at times. So that's my vibe. I'm not sort of sitting here going, let's go to some sort of communist utopia or something where money doesn't matter. It just doesn't. It's just not a real driving force to me beyond, keeping the old roof above the head and keeping life generally ticking over. Yeah. But I understand the role of a capitalist economy and all that. But when you look at things like when somebody is dying and they are faced with enormous costs for drugs that might fight cancer or something like that, and in that situation, money actually doesn't matter to people anymore. When they're confronted by that, they want to get it. If they have to go and give a little, if they have to sell stuff, if they have to cash in their life insurance, ask their parents for money, brothers, sisters, they do whatever they can to stay alive. And it's that sort of sense of things to me where it's like, when you sort of get to that point, it's just like, well, what actually matters? Yeah, it's like
a score on the balance sheet in the bank account.
And I sort of look at it that way. And when you see people that are poor, and that's when you worry about the economy, and you see it inflicting not just people being poor, but one thing that I don't like seeing is inequity, or just when people don't have equal chances because of the economy. Like, we started this conversation, which is a good one, and I knew it would be. My parents had economic security, meant that I could have chances, and look at me, like they didn't have anything flash, but they were secure. And that, to me, is the Kiwi dream, that you can be the first child in your family to go to university, and you have that security to be able to make good choices for yourself and have choices. But when there's inequity and you're just born somewhere and you're going to be poor and you're just going to have worse chances than someone else, like that, to me, sort of sucks. Even though I believe it has to be a capitalist system and everything. So, that's when you look at it and you go, why does money matter so much? Because it just doesn't seem fair. Yeah.
Do you think politicians get it? I mean, I guess you've had access, or you've met and dealt with all the big name politicians in this country for many years now. Do they sort of get that at a sort of, or do they lose it somewhere in the system?
Yeah, I think when you sort of start dealing with talking about dealing with inequity, quite often you'll find left-wing politicians are more able to intellectually talk about it. But right-wing politicians as well, I think some of the real good ones, they know it as well. And I think Bill English was someone who I had a lot to do with in my career, and he didn't come from the left, but he understood the power of the economy to give people choices and the need for it to do that. So I think there are politicians that definitely get it. We've got to we've got to keep the economy pumping all the time to help everyone, and they've got different ideas on how to do it, and different influences come into it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you get from the left. I get it from both sides. I'm sure you do too. But there's this idea that right-wing politicians are just looking after the rich, and that's not really my experience. I think they have a genuine belief that that it's about individual responsibility, and that will help motivate people. I mean, I can sort of see it's a balancing act there, isn't it? Yeah,
totally. And sometimes you look at it and you look at life and you do wonder why people don't get out and help them and help themselves. The world's full of examples of people who have pulled themselves up from the bootstraps, as the cliche goes, but not everyone seems to be able to do that. Yeah, but it's still a valid way of getting things moving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you were in charge, if it was Paddy Gower PM, I mean, I doubt that would ever appeal to you. But what is one big policy? Is there something that you would change first up to try and address some of those issues? Sorry, big question.
No. Where I really think it comes back to the way that we can supercharge New Zealand, which is what we need to do. We need to make this country, we need to make it go faster, as the saying goes. But the way to supercharge Aotearoa New Zealand in 2023 is through our schooling system. I'm convinced by this.
Yep.
Spent 25 years out of New Zealand looking at all sorts of things. That is our one chance where we get our children for 7 hours a day that we can influence their lives outside of all of the other problems that they might have. That is our biggest opportunity. We literally get them away from everything else and into a classroom, and we can work with every child in that environment. It's incredibly powerful when you think of it. Early learners especially is the absolute key, I think, to unlocking our potential as a country, because we've got them there.
Yeah.
We've got them there with these brilliant Kiwis that we can train as teachers to actually get their hands on them and deal with them away from whatever might be happening in their home life, wherever they've come from, whatever's going on, we get them in there. And to me, the ability to teach them to read, write, do maths at that point is key. Now, I know all political parties have different things. Let's give them an extra hour of this. Let's have 2 less of them in the classroom and stuff like that. But to me, the key really is to teach them really good ways of reading, writing, and doing maths scientifically correct. I've just been working on something where we teach 2 types of reading to our kids in New Zealand. One's scientifically pretty good, and one's scientifically not that great. What are we doing, bro? What are we doing with that precious time that we can't even decide as a country what type of reading to teach our kids? So for me, that sort of area is where we can actually build those people that we need to keep the country powering on for generations and generations.
Yeah, I mean, it's that problem we seem to have in the country, isn't it, of flip-flopping between, because we've got, democracy's the best of the systems we know, but that lack of bipartisanship on some of those key issues, and we swap it out every 6 or 9 years, doesn't seem to be moving us forward.
Yeah, I mean, like sticking with the classroom issue, we're arguing about things that they don't really matter. It doesn't matter if you sit the kids down for another hour a day like the National Party wants, or if you take 1 or 2 of the kids out of the classroom in a smaller class size for the kids, like what Labor wants, right? Those are the 2 sort of things that are happening right now. If you've got that kid and you're teaching them the wrong type of reading, well, it doesn't really matter what the red guys say and what the blue guys say. Like, we're actually just teaching them wrong with a couple less kids in the classroom, or you're sitting them down for longer and teaching them for an hour like the National Party wants. And like, this is the sort of thing that in a small country where we are quite centrist, it is frustrating, because we could sit here all day and come up with things like this, where we just don't get on and sort out the basics for ourselves. And then we have all these, it's like any family or anything, you're always having irrelevant fights about stuff that doesn't matter. And it's like a country, we're like that as well. Yeah,
look, going to leave it there because we're bumping up against time. But look, it just sounds like that's like one of many issues that we're going to hear you digging into in the next few weeks and hopefully years ahead. So I just want to wish you all the best for this show, and good luck.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, and I hope that I'm the worst with money that you've had on here.
May possibly be, but at least you've looked after your career.
Yeah, that's right. I've never gone bankrupt.
Trick, right?
I've got no debt or anything like that. I'm just not very good with it.
Yeah, but stay passionate about the thing you love, and things might work out.
Yeah. Thanks, Liam.
Cheers.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening. That's the last episode of this series, but we'll be back later in the year for Series 6. In the meantime, do check out our back catalogue of more than 30 episodes and interviews with New Zealanders about money.